Welcome to Do What Matters Most. This is episode 11 in the series Great Leaders. We know that leadership is mostly about relating to people and using this knowledge to exert positive influence toward a desired outcome. Great leaders, however, make this happen by knowing how to find the right people and then activating the freedom to choose. In this episode, Dr. Scoresby offers up-to-date methods of selecting the right people and also several ways to activate freedom, so they are more creative and productive than they would be around leaders who offer mediocre leadership.
There has never been a time in my life where the idea of leadership is more important than it is now. We are confronted with leadership questions when we evaluate our national leaders, our local leaders, our family leaders, people in our communities, in our neighborhoods. People are beginning to understand the significance of leadership in ways that they have never before given importance to it. This series on great leaders is designed to activate in your mind the fact that great leaders are governed by some doctrines or principles that underlie their work, and that once you understand these, then you can apply them to improve the quality of your leadership and better understand those who lead you. This episode is titled, Great Leaders Find the Right People and Activate the Freedom to Choose. As I mentioned, great leadership is almost always based on a fundamental doctrine that gives a person influence or power to motivate people and to create change and growth. These doctrines are like an underlying philosophy or touchstone for the application of authority, which is what great leadership actually is. This authority is power, however, and it can be used by leaders in many different ways. You know, and I know, that people watch those who lead and form their opinions about whether they will follow and whether they will perform well. We get Mutiny on the Bounty, or the devotion and respect given to Dwight Eisenhower, where hundreds of thousands followed his commands into battle at the risk of their own lives. The problem for leaders is to use it in a way that promotes growth and which helps people and does no harm. There are numerous circumstances where achievements were reached, but the emotional bodies of those who were led lie strewn around on the floor, harmed by the experience. There are too many situations like that today, and is often known as golden handcuffs, where you are handcuffed to your work because of the money, but you'd rather not be there because the leaders are not good. The people who follow are there to learn a living and stay even when the exercise of authority and power will harm them and other people. The doctrines which apply to great leaders are those which promote growth, remarkable growth in many instances, and still help and promote growth and benefit the people. That is, the people are never separate from the need for an organization. And if not then, they at least avoid harming the people who do the work. Each doctrine describes the positive effects of leadership, and when any leader learns to apply the doctrines well, they will be taking a step toward one form of truly great leadership. Now, one of the doctrines, this one, is related to the type of choices leaders make about people and then how they apply or activate freedom to choose among those who are led. Someone once said that it was possible to tell what kind of leader any person was by looking at those the leader gathered around him or her. If he uses yes men, conformists, sycophants, or those given to flattery, then he or she would be the kind of leader who wishes the credit and the recognition. If a leader chooses people who have autonomy, strengths, and talents, creativity, and leadership in their own right, then this leader will pursue the success of the organization rather than the recognition he may want instead. You can imagine the difference in politics and culture each of these types of leaders would create. Now, having introduced the doctrine that good leaders find the right person and then activate the freedom to choose, I wish to address the idea of what a right person is. It's a very interesting concept. Does it mean that the right person is one who has the talents and training for a given job? Is the right person someone who has leadership, vision, and the ability to motivate others? Does the right person know how to be a team player and work cooperatively with others in highly complicated tasks? Does the right person have the capacity to learn, to innovate, and to generate ideas? Or is the right person someone who does some work, but mostly kisses up to those who lead and make them feel important? There are as many definitions of who or what the right person is as there are leaders and positions to be filled. The point of all this, however, should not be lost on any who wishes to successfully lead others. To be the most successful, any leader must have a well thought out definition of what the right person is for the situation the leader wants them to participate in. Failure to do that means that a certain percent of the time a wrong person will be selected, and not only will progress be slowed, but often more harm will come to people and to the working culture than can be repaired quickly. A great leader, like any other leader, will be judged by the people he or she gathers around them, as I've mentioned, and then how he goes about, organizes, and utilizes the talents and resources to create a powerful form of collaboration. So what does the research tell us about how often leaders try to find the right person and does it, who smoothly moves into a new position and adds energy, effort, and productivity? Well, there appears to be no universal agreement, but if I were to summarize the research I've read, it would be about 70% of the time that leaders choose the right person and do not have to either settle for less than the desired goal or to make a quick move to replace this person. But please keep in mind that one quality of a great leader is not only the ability to find the right people, but to also activate, inspire, motivate, and otherwise make it possible for them to be very successful. This means that great leaders know how to understand people in reference to the positions they want them to hold and the work they are to do and how to generate outstanding performance. They apparently have a great deal of people knowledge and contextual knowledge. There is evidence that this is different in many respects from other leaders who have a lot of problems. So let's explore what this idea means and then review what great leaders do about it. First, let's examine what good leaders use as their method of finding the right people. As it turns out, there's a very unique method many great leaders use, which is not well known but could and probably should be. They are interested in several qualities that most great leaders look for and hope to find in people they select to be part of the leadership team. But they realize that the most powerful influence on any individual is the context or situation where the work is carried out. Please consider that every work condition has five elements to it: the work to be done, the policies, rules, and procedures, the individual being considered, other people, and the nature of the relationship between this individual and the other people. Now, with that in mind, please consider the following. It is typically not just about fitting in. Great leaders will evaluate the work environments the person has previously worked in, and with the work environment being considered. That is, what are the rules, what's the work, other people, relationships, and personal qualities. If the comparisons yield enough information, then great leaders will address and answer the following questions. Does the person being considered understand the vision of the work to be done, and can he or she demonstrate the ability to learn and make changes which will be forthcoming? When great leaders choose a person in a work or performance environment, they have some concept of how much work, the degree of excellence of that work, and other qualities such as the attitude, motivation, and enthusiasm a person will have to perform often difficult and challenging tasks. So they'll describe what they think to be the nature of the work, its impact on others, and also communicate something about the timing and importance of it to other people. Typically, they also hope that the right person will not only see the same vision they do, but understand how to make improvements on it. This provides an idea of whether the person can change with an evolving work climate. Number 2, does the person in consideration that the leader is choosing understand how their work or role contributes to what others do? Quite often, one of the most difficult parts of selecting the right person is to gauge how well a person can comprehend the nature of the work in this role and its effect on others. Knowing how one's behavior affects others is often a bit more difficult to learn about, and ironically, it may be among the most important qualities looked for. So a great leader might describe situations where the person might work in and examine what happens if his or her work is late, is less than excellent, or on time or of great quality. He or she will want all those to line up, and there is a good match between the new person, the existing personnel, and the circumstance of their work. Number 3 probably goes without having to say it, but since it's important, I will say it. Good leaders choose people who have excellent work habits, and they want to know what their past achievements are. This, of course, is about a person's capacity for organization and the ability to start, persist, and finish work. It may indicate what someone will do in a new position or may not, but it's important to help a leader select someone who feels responsible, is effective, and efficient. If you fail at this as a leader, you may have to spend a whole lot more time supervising than you thought you were going to. It is not only about focus and effort, but it's the willing to work until the task is completed. 4. How well does the new person understand the culture? This is a team and company-wide culture that a new person needs to understand and fit into and promote. It might be values, service, working cooperatively, which has been established by leaders, to provide the climate in which work is accomplished. It's highly significant because culture persists over time, and if it's disrupted, it often distracts from the work in major ways. It's crucial, therefore, to understand how quickly the individual being considered can comprehend the nature of the culture. So visiting with people, having a chance for that person to ask questions and questions asked of him or her turns out to be crucial. 5. What are the social skills required? Even when you're moving toward more remote work experiences, social skills still matter. In fact, they often matter more. And that is because some forms of communication and communication clarity are more essential. And while this might include ease of meeting people and helping others, but interviewing skills turn out to be really important to gather information, the type of questions they're able to ask, communicating accurately, and to demonstrate the ability to support others and communicate support and give credit and recognition when it is earned. It shouldn't be a surprise that some individuals just don't know how to do that, or if they do, they don't know how important it is. 6. Learn how to create alliances and networking. Nowadays, most work involves joining one person's work with others in alliances or teams that collectively accomplish or work to accomplish a given purpose. This is why the idea of teams has become much more prominent, and where the idea of teams was often a negative just a few years ago. It's now recognized that a few people working together can get more accomplished than the same number of people working alone. That is, if a person understands the importance of loyalty to people, personal responsibility, high-level communication skills, knowing when and what to communicate, and all of these values places a considerable new light on the skills that a person should have to be the right person. 7. Communication, written and spoken. I mentioned this earlier, but the right person for any work nowadays must have much better communication skills than even in previous years where they were considered important. Recognizing this, leaders who select people will want to know about both writing and speaking skills to ensure that communication accuracy can be achieved. You may even want to spend extra time when you're in the selection process finding out how a person communicates before the selection is made. More time is lost and rendered ineffective because of the inaccuracy of communication than virtually any other quality. 8. Initiative, risk-taking, and self-motivation. This quality is more difficult and accurate gauge about, so that other people's recommends are usually sought after. But as it turns out, and as everybody is learning, resumes are not always accurate, nor do they communicate enough. So you have to use other means to find out if a person will demonstrate initiative to first create and then propose or communicate with others. It's a little like an entrepreneurial quality, but it is so necessary in the world of work nowadays because change is occurring so rapidly along with market conditions and competition that individuals just need to be able to initiate and to be able to create. 9, the ability to pay attention and stay invested. The right person is one who will always find ways to invest in the work by getting involved with new challenges and the effort to be productive. It's the idea of always doing one thing more. One of the questions that good leaders ask nowadays is, well, what did you do more when you got into this situation? What did you think of? Engagement is the new watchword for one who has the ability to pay attention, stay focused, and to see something from the beginning to the end and then do something more. 10, having a different leadership style which adds something different to your team. Quite often the right person is selected based on the gut feelings of the leader who wants someone who might have a different leadership style but who can also work well with others. And depending on the leader's ego, it may be the most important qualification that somehow the right person triggers something in the leader that gives him the impression that selecting this person will be the right one. Most good leaders do not necessarily want people who placate or please. They would like somebody who has the courage to say their own thoughts and feelings, even at the risk of disagreeing with something that the leader has said. Looking at the person's leadership abilities, therefore, is what great leaders apparently do. There is the perspective of diversity and for similarity, and great leaders appear to be excellent at knowing how to make adjustments. So now at this point, I have proposed 10 criterion by which great leaders choose the right person for the positions they wish to fill. Selecting the right person is the beginning, and according to this doctrine, great leaders understand the necessity of activating the freedom to choose. The doctrine regarding freedom states, human beings are the most intelligent of all creations and are uniquely and inherently free to choose, even though some people may resist freedom and the responsibility which comes with it. They achieve more and sustain their performance better when their freedom is activated by those who lead them. Great leaders who activate the freedom to choose will use these words, will you, more often than you will. In other words, a great leader will often ask the people who leads to make choices. Instead of just assigning people tasks, a great leader will do several things to ensure freedom is protected and respected. For example, rather than delegating a specific assignment to someone, a great leader will delegate by asking if someone will accomplish a goal and then inviting them to develop at least part of the strategy or how to achieve it. It will sound like, will you please consider taking this on, achieving this outcome, and completing it this month? This type of statement invites the person to make a choice. Yes, I will, or no, I won't, or no, I can't. Which choice is part of activating their freedom? This remarkable doctrine actually presents a paradoxical situation for leaders. This happens because leaders know they'll be measured by what is accomplished, and the pressure and responsibility felt is often one that can motivate them to depend and put pressure on people in order to get the job done. The idea of freedom in this situation may seem too risky to take, but this effort to apply freedom to get things done will reduce people's pressure and sense of resistance, and in turn will change the leadership culture in a way that will give people more freedom and more responsibility and more motivation to achieve. The question great leaders ask and answer for themselves is to discover the process of activating freedom to choose, which also ensures high performance sustained over time. Now here's how they do that. They understand the importance of what is called the flow of information. Among the first things good leaders do is ensure that the flow of information runs horizontally rather than just up and down a vertical chain. That is, instead of sending information from the top to the next level and so on to the bottom, everyone will receive the information at the same time. And great leaders spend increasing amounts of their time moving information from one group to another to ensure that all are informed correctly and timely. True freedom depends on the relative open flow of information so that everyone knows what everyone knows. Influence and shape the culture where freedom exists. Great leaders will also affect the culture of the organization, as I've mentioned, by recognizing people for their initiative and achievement, by emphasizing cooperative work that is self-selected, and by nurturing a positive climate for innovative thought, and by regularly informing people about the progress they are making as an organization and as individuals and teams. This culture then helps produce a sense of freedom because people connect the desired outcome with the methods necessary to achieve. Their sense of freedom will be activated because they choose to learn the current goals and objectives and might have a role in deciding what the goals ought to be at their level or station. It is then they also make choices about how to achieve the goals. Being free to add effort and choose to participate better will add momentum to what people do. To activate the freedom to choose, great leaders also respect the importance of quality relationships, which breaks down the formality of some conditions while preserving respect. One of the hallmarks of great leaders is the nature of their relationship with coworkers. Instead of setting up a status hierarchy where subordinates are led to spend time faking their progress to impress, or spending time finding a way to communicate excessive loyalty, or saying yes too often, or feigned production, great leaders tend to create a certain form of friendship where each person's contribution is recognized and appreciated. This allows people the freedom to disagree during discussions as part of everyone trying to find the best course of action. It also allows those who participate to speculate and hypothesize without risk to themselves, sort of like a hold harmless discussion. To some, friendships might appear to allow people to do less and be less productive, but these friendships are initiated because the culture where these take place includes a strong emphasis on responsibility and high achievement. So when someone shows initiative, it's within the context of the assumed presence of freedom to choose. Now last, freedom to choose is activated when good leaders provide opportunities for learning, for service, and several other forms of knowledge acquisition. One of the most common methods great leaders use to activate the freedom to choose takes place when leadership training, service to others, and other forms of learning are made an essential feature of the organization's work. By requesting that people learn as part of their job description, great leaders open the doors of discussion and thoughtfulness about what the challenges people face. Those who learn willingly are those also who typically have a stronger sense of freedom. Well, you can inspire more freedom than demand. One of the most remarkable differences between great leaders and those who might be mediocre is that great leaders inspire rather than threaten. They do this by telling achievement stories, by making certain that the idea of freedom is often mentioned and reinforced, especially when someone is being recognized, and by championing the improvement of people's performance because they chose to face and overcome challenges and turned their energy into remarkable achievement. In this manner, great leaders communicate to all that people who do the work are more important than the work, and choosing to live according to these values is what promotes the great achievement of the organization. All of the methods great leaders use to activate the freedom to choose do not include simply leaving people alone or being passive in applying leadership. Activating freedom is only possible when there is a positive approach to make that happen and create the conditions for it, because it is often the difference between extraordinary achievement and something much less. Knowing how to activate the freedom to choose in the lives of the right people should be one of the essential doctrines which motivate and guide any leader. Those who become great leaders will use it to find the right people and then will activate the freedom to choose.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Do What Matters Most, which is sponsored by firstanswers.com, where you can find new tools for families and parents of 21st century kids with a focus on emotional self-reliance. Visit firstanswers.com to sign up for a free newsletter. Find Do What Matters Most on Facebook and our website, mattersmostmedia.org, where you can ask Dr. Scoresby your own questions. Remember to subscribe to stay up to date with new episodes. Give us a rating and write a review on the podcast app or Google Podcasts, and let us know what you think about Do What Matters Most.